Sudanese refugees fleeing war are being detained in secret centres in the desert, then sent back into the conflict by Egypt's government. But why? We've spoken to 2 Sudanese citizens who attempted to cross into Egypt to apply for asylum. One was turned around and sent back, and the other was detained for 31 days. Like many other Sudanese refugees, they boarded a bus headed to Cairo, but when their bus was boarded by security officers, the men were ordered to get off. Then they were arrested. The man was asked for his identity to remain anonymous, fearing repercussions if he speaks out.
Some officers got on the bus, picked a few people and made them get off the bus. When they reached me, they made me get off the bus along with 2 other young men. As they were taking people off the bus, they were checking their ages. If you were younger than 18, they let you go. A bus came for us and it took us from Aswan to Komombo. It took an hour and a half. They take you to this faraway place, so when they file a report against you, no one knows anything about you and what's happening, so they can take you to trial if they want. That same night, we were held in Komombo. They interrogated us. Out of 23 people interrogated, they picked 13. The rest were either let go or taken to another station. We don't know what happened to them.
The man describes being sent to 2 separate detention centres. The first was located in Komombo, where he spent 13 days inside. Then he was transported with a group of people to a military camp in Shalal, which was predominantly for refugees entering the country. These makeshift centres were crammed with people, and he says many had to take turns to sleep on the ground. The centre also included women and children, many who'd been held at the camp for months despite saying they had valid visas or processed refugee claims. Instead, they were treated like prisoners, denied medical attention and provided with little food. Those with family that could bribe the guards were allowed to bring provisions in from outside. After 31 days as a detainee, he was deported back to Sudan.
They took us from Aswan to a new place called Abu Simbel. They took us by a police truck which was completely closed off. They put us in handcuffs, as if we killed someone. In Abu Simbel, they asked me if this is my stuff, and I said yes. But when we arrived in Sudan and we arrived in Halfa, when I looked through my bag, I couldn't find my necklace. I asked them where my necklace was and they said they didn't know. They just steal your belongings. They look through your things and take what they want and they don't care.
On the 15th of April 2023, fighting broke out in Sudan's capital Khartoum between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army, causing huge displacement both within Sudan and to neighbouring countries. It is estimated that around 500,000 Sudanese nationals have fled to Egypt, many making use of a visa exemption agreement between the 2 countries. But in June 2023, Egypt removed the exemption, making it extremely hard to enter the country. This left many with no choice but to enter Egypt illegally, planning to secure appointments at the UN Refugee Agency in Cairo and settling in Egypt. A recent investigation by the New Humanitarian and the Refugees Platform in Egypt located a number of unofficial sites that had been used to detain Sudanese refugees near the border. The facilities were in military-controlled bases in the southern Aswan and Red Sea Governorate. A majority of them are operated by border guard forces under the control of the Ministry of Defence, and one is operated by a police unit under the Ministry of Interior. However, none of these sites were actually designated to be official detention centres by the Ministry of Interior, making them illegal under Egyptian law.
We documented pregnant women. They were very sick in these places, seeking for health care, and they didn't receive any treatment. The people get deported. They are deporting them to places like Halfa and Argin, which is there are no services on the other side. There are no health care on the other side or any kind of services. So people have to move from this area. For the people, they get deported and stuck there. The only information about them, they are facing a huge challenges to reach the basic needs for continue life living there. Which is problems of reaching water, reaching medicines, and having food.
The report concluded that this detention and deportation method violates international refugee agreements that Egypt has agreed to follow.
People are facing different kind of crimes against humanity from the moment of the arrest, while they are not giving them any rights as a prisoner. All the accusations in the official documents we reviewed through our investigation, showing that it's false accusations without any evidence. Without any evidence, those people committed these crimes, and all the investigations and the police reports is copied from each other with changing the names.
Not all Sudanese refugees are being detained. Some are caught on their way to Cairo, stopped, and then told to turn back to Sudan, even with the correct visas. Travelling with her mother, father, and siblings, we spoke to a woman who considers herself lucky, as she and her family were just deported back to Sudan without detention. She has asked for her identity to remain anonymous.
We took a bus to Cairo, and in the middle of the road, at a place called Qina, our bus was pulled over, and a police officer came to us and asked about our papers, whether we came legally or undercover. After 5 hours, an officer came up to us and said, "We are taking you back to Aswan. You cannot go to Cairo, but you will be allowed to stay in Aswan." I slept off, and when I woke up, it was 7 a.m. the next day, and we had passed Aswan. My dad told me that apparently they took their words back, and we will not be taken back to Aswan, but to Sudan. They didn't ask us for money. We weren't put in a detention center. They just took all 6 buses back. It's just sad. If the visas were easier to obtain, we wouldn't have traveled illegally in the first place. Because this journey wasn't easy and it wasn't cheap. They are making it impossible to get visas issued. We are helpless. We just want to flee this war. We want safety. We want stability. And Egypt is closing its doors on us.
Egypt has grown to be a hub for refugees fleeing both from Sudan and Gaza. However, since these crises began, Egypt's economy has experienced a huge loss. In March this year, the European Union finalised an $8 billion deal with Egypt, aiming to prevent the flow of refugees across the Mediterranean Sea and into mainland Europe. It echoes similar deals with the EU signed with Turkey and Libya since 2016, which have been criticised by international rights organisations. Critics say that this deal with Egypt could make European countries complicit in the abuses happening to refugees in Egypt. According to Amnesty, Egyptian authorities have denied the accusations that they are mistreating refugees, but are yet to respond to the findings of the investigations. As the war in Sudan drags on for over a year, there is no clear end in sight. The nation's population continues to remain caught in the crossfire, enduring immense suffering and loss.